Hi, welcome to Disco, Discernment Conversations, dancing with the questions of life.
Well, Lorraine, today I thought we could again bring up the issue of boundaries and healthy boundaries for good discernment. And one point that we want to make today is that we really need to respect our own boundaries and take responsibility for our life and for our response to God's call to us. So what can happen, and I'll give you an example from my own experience, where I was leaving one ministry and going to another state to begin another ministry, and that meant saying goodbye to a lot of close friends. And one friend of mine was so supportive. She was sad I was leaving, but she knew it was the best decision for me, and she really wanted to support that. The other friend was really upset that I was leaving, but she was very controlling and let me know how angry she was and how much I was disappointing her. And it made for, a lot of guilt that I needed and upset that I needed to process, because she wasn't respecting my boundaries. But the fact of the matter is, I needed to really respect my boundaries and work through that. So it's so important to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's true. And it makes me think a lot of people coming to religious life have talked about family issues. And family has a certain claim on us, and yet we also have to honor who we are and what God calls us to be. I think of a positive situation where, in terms of boundaries, it was about a year after my stepfather had passed away, and the congregation asked me to discern to go to Alaska, and I was open to it. And I thought, oh, how will my mom be? Now she's on her own. She lives in Canada, so already I'm far away. And then I'm going to go to Alaska, even farther. But she genuinely said, no, I want you to be where you're happy. And she supported it and didn't try and lay a guilt trip or anything on me for that. And I was grateful for that. But even if she had, I would have had to really honor my own call from God, from the congregation. And how was I called to be a support in relationship to her? And I would have had to discern that, whether family does or doesn't support, we all have to figure out what is my real call. And the key, I think, is to be able to choose in freedom and not out of guilt. So that maybe you do need to stay home even though you feel called to care for an ill family member for a couple of years, but you're really discerning that and choosing it freely, because if you don't, you'll end up filled with resentment. So it's really a figuring out, okay, God, what is the real call here? And maybe there are alternatives to explore so that we are really free to pursue whatever it is God's asking of us.
And I would say, in this experience of making choices and getting the pros and cons from our family and friends, it's also to see how are we when our friends or family are making big decisions. Do we respect their boundaries like we want our boundaries respected? Or do we lay a guilt trip on them, give them the silent treatment, try to manipulate them and control them to stay near us and do what we want them to do, So it's so important to consider that. Do we respect other people's boundaries, and do we really respect our own boundaries so that we can make healthy decisions?
And I think as we practice that, it kind of goes both ways. The more we practice being generous and respectful of others, the more we also can claim that in a healthy way for ourselves. So we again pray that you have healthy boundaries, and that may God, Creator, bless you.
May God, Redeemer, heal you.
And may God, the Holy Spirit,
fill you with light.